adding?
I just want to point out that, I think as a moderator of this panel, you are absolutely fantastic. You always kind of you're not afraid to challenge or push back, which is kind of unusual for a moderator on a panel. And I think it's absolutely refreshing. It is very, very nice. But with that being said, I would like to point out that, you are absolutely right. It is intense competition. And despite what we would like to impress upon young people, we cannot fail to acknowledge the reality that they are experiencing, right? So the first point is, Eleanor, I know you mentioned that if you have resources or if you have the opportunity, then we should also constantly remind ourselves that most people in this world are poor. And the fact is that they don't have an opportunity to really do the things that we've had an opportunity to do, as the numbers show us. And kids, they're not making up this pressure. We have built a society that values only certain qualities of individuals. And that's reality. Now, people have greatness, they have capacities and abilities in so many different things. And yes, they can definitely find joy and pleasure in everything. But for a lot of people, that's just not their reality. And they are very focused on making sure that they mold themselves into society's expectations, not their own, but society's expectations, so that they're just able, as we've said before, just to survive. And then if you have a lot of people who want to aspire and come from communities that are not as well resourced or have historically been disenfranchised, then oftentimes there is an immense amount of pressure that nothing that we can say can kind of get them out of it. Because as Rashida mentioned, whether it's entrance exams or in the United States getting good grades, the pressure that my daughter is currently under to perform and meet expectations and goals that are set arbitrarily outside of herself. She can tell herself every day that, I like this or like that. But the fact of the matter is, she has to go into a school system. She has to go into a society in which the qualities and the standards and the expectations are set by others and have been set before she was born. And so while I always do want to be aspirational, I do want to validate what our moderator is saying, that is a reality. And for those of us in power or with influence, it's not just enough to encourage students to maybe think different about themselves. That is important. But we also have a duty and obligation to change the system itself. If we're working in academia, we have to change the way academia values students and how society values people. And so it's an uphill journey that's not just looking down and telling people they should think differently about themselves, which is important. I don't want to say that that's not important, because it is very, very important. But as our moderator is saying, they do live in a society that has them fit themselves into tiny boxes, unfortunately. And so I think we need to work very hard to not only change the next generation coming up, while we are in power now, while we have influence now, as we aspire to be better our personal selves now, we also have to have a commitment to working to change society, working to change power dynamics and expectations of people. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that as well.
I think,
Wills, yeah, please continue.
I was going to say that I think Richard makes a fantastic point, and I think this brings back the thing that I was mentioning about educators and making sure that they are, they are bringing these elements into the curriculum. And this is important because I think there's two very important points that were mentioned that go hand in glove. So there is this idea, I choose to call it the privilege competition interface. So it's basically, you are, there is a correlation, as Richard mentioned, between the kind of pressures, competitive pressures that you face and the kind of privileged background that you come from. But also uniformly across the entire student community, there is also the aspect of like, what are the standards of assessment for progress, but that they are kind of moving towards. And both of these elements need our modern educator workforce to be very sensitive towards it and try and innovate in ways that pedagogical practices that are mindful of both of these things are brought into the educational institutions from a very bottom-up level. So from the elementary school, middle school, high school level, and then moving into the higher education level. There's a lot of work on this in higher education that is being done right now. There are paradigms like universal design for learning. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar about this, but these are used for, I would say like a broader spectrum of assessment techniques amongst college students. But a lot of it has to actually start more at the school level, because that's where they're coming in from. The pressure is kind of already building. And I think this Richard's point kind of re-emphasizes the need for some of these innovations to get into teaching and education overall.
And also speaking from the perspective of India, I think I can recall the part that in, where we are struggling after 12th, we used to give exams, and, to get into IITs, that used to be such a huge pressure from the society, and from the perspective of that we all as a students want to work and want to get into IITs and want to get into these competitive examination. And it's very sad that I read a lot of, I read newspapers and I see a lot of news, catering around a lot of students who are preparing from IITs, who are preparing after their 12th. And they, when they do not get into the system, when they do not get into IITs, many of them actually, they do some extreme steps, they do suicides, they do, get into depression. They lose the hope of actually that, they feel that they will not be able to get into some good institution. So because that peer pressure and that pressure due to high competition in India, I agree with the fact that Ruchita was highlighting, that it's very, very difficult to get into the upper hierarchy of the institutions. But having said that, it is very important as well at the same point of time that Debanjan also highlighted, that the mental health of the students who are preparing for these examinations into their 12th and 11th standards, how they are counseled, what kind of career directions we are providing. So what kind of, they have to believe themselves that even if they not get into some competitive examinations, but still they can get further good into their lives. They can get into a good profession. They can get into IITs later on. So for me, if I can share my personal experience, I gave a master's, I was trying to get into IIT systems, and I gave my entrance for master's to IIT Roorkee, to even IIT Mandi, and I couldn't get into that for my master's. And I did my master's from Delhi universities. And then again, I tried filing for, I applied for PhDs, and I applied for various institutions in IITs, and then I get into one. So that's a struggle that we do, that, the entrance exams, we go with the process again and again, and may not be possible that we get into with our first attempt. So also it is very important that we highlight that what kind of internal system modeling we are doing from our side, and what kind of the mental health or the counseling the students are getting that at that level when they're preparing for the examinations. Because in India, I understand that it's really very competitive, and it's really very when the students cannot get into the system. I have nieces who are preparing for IIT exams, and I can see the pressure they are going through. I can see that if they exam into January, so they get into this mental stress of, if I couldn't get into IIT, or if I couldn't clear the exam, what will be the repercussions. So that kind of pressure do exist. That's the reality. And we should, I think the counseling part is very critical. So if you are interacting with us, so you can see all of us journey, you can hear all of us thoughts. So that's something kind of interaction which is happening. but most of the times that interaction is a gap. It doesn't happen that way. So it's very difficult for the students to understand the wider perspective of life, rather just because they are so much focused for the 2 years preparation or for the 3 years preparation, that they are, finally focusing on the one competitive exam. So they I think sometimes it's very important to make them realize the wider perspective. They have ample amount of opportunities for their future, and I think that's also very important.
Perhaps I can share a little bit of an interesting perspective, having been through the IIT system myself, and then kind of now on the academic side at a different institution. And I think sort of like segueing from Hani's point here, it is important that you realize that your path to a certain career choice can go through the IITs, but
Yes,
can also not go through the
go
IITs
to us.
as well.
Yes, exactly.
And if you and this actually brings up an interesting point. I mean, you are Women for STEM India. I mean, at this point of time, one of the things that maybe you all as a team, as an organization, can think about is to display out and work towards displaying out all of these career choices, in which you will see that going through the IITs is one method, that but also, you have a trajectory that maybe does not go through the IITs, and that's method B.
Exactly. Yeah. True.
You may think that good students, get into IITs, or top students get into
Yeah.
IITs. But there is also a flip side to it. Not all top students are in the IITs.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. True.
so I think bringing some of these realities out to the students, up
It's
front
very
and center at the school level, especially considering the IIT system and the pressure surrounding it, is extremely important. And if the
important. Yeah.
school counseling system, if they're not doing that, then maybe organizations like Women for STEM India can do that, and bring
Yeah.
some of those roadmaps out in front of the people, and say that it is fantastic if you get into IITs. It is
Yeah.
also fantastic if you don't get into IITs. It's not the be all
Exactly.
end all. It's definitely a process in which you study for exams, and there is certain aspects of the preparation that are beneficial, but there is a lot of the preparation aspects, especially those that involve the pressure, the stress, which is not beneficial. And you might want to kind of like have a broader discussion surrounding that, like what does the modern career path of a young STEM enthusiast look like, with or without the dependence on IITs at this point of time, because that alleviates a lot of the stress and pressure. Also, maybe you do get to kind of work within the IIT system, their advanced tech environment, but not at the undergraduate level. Funnily enough, a lot of the undergraduates from IITs are not even doing tech when they graduate.
Exactly.
I would say
Exactly.
I am a minority, that I continue to stick
Yeah.
them work with
Yeah.
finance systems and banks and investments and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe your path to actually making scientific contribution perhaps is better served in some
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
If you think about that big population who don't do scientific work after that, after their undergraduate degree, or maybe those who are doing graduate degree, the statistics might look different. I'm not aware. But I'm trying to give you different pieces of the puzzle here to kind of lay out
Yeah.
a map that there is work that needs to be done to bring out alternative career paths, alternative education tracks in front of the young school students who are going through this phase right now. For example, you yourself, the Ruchita, as well as Hani mentioned her relatives, and I have relatives too, and I talk to them all the time about the same things. So this is an interesting point I wanted to bring up, because an organization like Women for STEM India actually can do this. You can bring
Yeah.
all these different pathways in front of your members and students and your audience.
And I always say that the perception of excellence or the perception of IITs or getting into this is something that's very deep rooted. It's something that you say and you brag about, but it shouldn't be like that. So these institutions were meant to be the education hub. But I think with the modern times, we have so much of facility available towards us. We can do a lot of internships. We can learn a lot through internet. We can learn a lot through books. So that is something that's knowledge is not limited to some. Yes, obviously you can augment your knowledge. You can, get a good exposure of a lot of things, but at the same point of time, you have to understand that it is not something that's, you were mentioning that some gets through the great institutions or the competition, the competitive exams. So you have to understand your capacity, you have to believe in your capabilities, and you have to work on that, so that you don't let some other tag along to define that you are good into something. You have to work towards that. So I think that's very important, and towards that to all of you, to all of your even if you're schoolmates, I would like to actually make them understand as well that competitive exams are good, you should give them. But if you couldn't get through them, it's not the end of the life. It's something that it's just the beginning of your life. That's something, one exam, and then there are a lot of exams that you will have to give in your future. So yeah.
So like on the ground level, the thing right now is that online everything is available. So everybody knows what courses are provided by each university. The thing is, it comes down to this, that a child who is around 16, 17 has no idea what they want to do in the future. And then they ask their parents, and their parents are like, okay, you just take engineering or take something that has more options because that's the safer choice, and do it from a good university. And then you have MIT, the Ivy Leagues, some good universities in Singapore, UK, Oxford's there, Cambridge is there, you have IITs. And that's what happens. So it's like you have the knowledge, but you do not understand yourself. So how can you just decide on something? And then it's just the rat race of giving examinations, doing extracurricular activities, writing your application essays, talking to people about this. What should I pick? What subject should I choose? Okay, if I take a subject and then I go to university, I don't like that subject, I cannot change. Okay, if my friend takes a subject, he likes it and I don't like it, I will be left behind. If I take a drop year to figure out things, I'll be left behind. It's like, I think that's what goes in the mind of a teenager in 11th and 12th.
I think what they need to do is to get information from other people. I think that was one of the lovely things that we had in Switzerland, was that when you're in high school, you have career days for 2 years in a row, and you meet people who've studied and worked in the topic and also had career changes, because it's really difficult to know if you're going to like something until you're in it. And sometimes you can do internships, like for example medical students, they have to do an internship in the second year, but they can actually start with a medical internship even before they actually do medical studies, and it's a really good way to get into that. But for me, what really changed was like meeting people and looking at the curriculum, and that really helped me in choosing this. And regarding universities thinking, well, that university is going to do this, I went to Cambridge and I went to 2 other universities before that. And I can tell you that those 2 universities that were for free actually were, in my opinion, better. Literally. And what I really hate is people that are like, oh, you have a PhD from Cambridge, surely you smart. They're like, no, I'm not. like honestly, like the work I had to put in those other 2 universities was like over there. But what made Cambridge great was it's an 800-year-old university that has several Nobel Prizes. So of course, if you look at the ranking, it's super high. So the problem is people put, again, an artificial level on these things. And what you need to do is come to students and say, a university that is great is one that teaches you to learn about the topic, to always learn better, and of course that has a slightly good reputation that can then open doors for you. But like picking a university just for its name is a mistake, because often you will find yourself a very elitist people who might not have this thirst for knowledge that you need, when what you need is professors that are engaging, professors that teach you correctly and teach you how to work on your own. This is the most important thing, because if you know how to work on your own, if you know how to just get the job done, you can go anywhere. But if you just rely on privilege alone, that's gonna last your whole life. That's gonna last a few years until people see the smoke screen is gone, and then like the sorry for the word, but the bullshit comes out. So I think that's like it is sad that we put such emphasis on how good a university is, when for me, if you tell me, oh, I've been to that university, I'm like, well, sure, okay, like how much did you pay for it, you know? Whereas if you tell me, well, I went to that local university because I was passionate about this, and then I went and did 3 or 4 internships, then I know that you're someone who's dedicated because you made the effort to go to university, not because of its reputation, but because you like the topic. And then you went the extra mile and you did those internships. And your experience working is actually way more valuable. So this is, but it's something that people need to understand. For example, my parents' generation, they were also more like, oh, you know, university is important, you know. And I was like, well, you know, yeah, Cambridge is great, but the university that's like in my city is awesome. It's so good, and I love the way they teach, and they were way more involved with students, and it was almost free. You know, like it was for Swiss salaries, it was close to nothing. You know, and it was, I was thinking, I'm so lucky to have this university next to me because it's really good. The opportunities are great, and yeah, okay, it's not even in the top 10 rankings, in the top 20 in Europe, which is still very, very good. You know, it's not top 5 like Cambridge, but it's still like, it was so fantastic because we had professors that were not there being snotty, but actually really enjoyed teaching us. And we were able to access laboratories. A lot of universities are now also coasting on their reputation. So instead of buying actually good equipment, they're just like, oh, we've got this thing from like 50 years ago, but you know, like that Nobel Prize worked on it, so just deal with it. And you're like, yeah, but that's useless to me. You're like, how am I supposed to do research? I'd rather have a new university that with a lesser reputation, but actually I make a real contribution to science because I can get ahead. So you sometimes it's just about, you know, cleaning a bit the fairyland and telling the facts. You know, tell students to go and look for advice and for people who actually have experience. You know, how was it to study that? Was it really wonderful? Was it not wonderful? What did you learn from this? What did you not? Like, for example, I will tell you, doing PhD in Cambridge, yeah, sure, it's great. Why? Because of all the things around them, all the opportunities, all the networking. But doing your undergrad in Cambridge, I personally wouldn't recommend it because I think that you could profit way more from other universities where you have 30, for example, hours of, you know, time with your professor rather than 10 hours. And to answer to the question, how do you find the right university? It's complicated. There's many things that take into account. How far are you going to be away from home? Like, do you need to take care of your parent or not? Maybe you can't always go far away. Is there a university like this in your country? Can you have a visa, etc.? These are the kind of thing that can impact you. But one very important factor is, do they have the subject that you're interested in? And what kind of person are you to learn? I know some people who would never show up for classes. They just learn on their own. Some people are like this, and it's not necessarily wrong. It's just the way they are. And some other people, they need 40 hours of people who tell them exactly how things are done and explain the textbook for them. And there's no wrong and right. It's just the way it is. So you need to take this into factor when you choose a university. And then there's the whole thing that comes around a university. Your subject, your topic is obviously extremely important, but then it's like the opportunities that you form around them that are extremely crucial. Are these universities well connected with industrial partners that will give you the opportunities of doing internships, of doing bachelor's and master projects that are industry related or project related? For example, I love space. Third year, we had to do bachelor thesis, and I was like, I want to do space related bachelor thesis. We had what was called the Swiss Space Center, now it's Space Innovation. And like, yeah, sure, just go and ask a student if there's something available. And I was able to work on satellite components, you know. But if you have a university who is not very flexible on this or doesn't have those industrial partners, then even if it's ranked top 5, if it doesn't have this, then it's, you know. So that will depend on what you like, you know. Well, and it's difficult to know, but it's something that you can discuss with someone. And it's usually what I do with students when they're like, oh, I don't know if I should pick mechanical engineering, material science, the chemistry. And I'm like, okay, do you like being in the lab? Do you like doing simulation? Do you like working alone? Do you like working in a team? Do you like working hands-on? Do you prefer? And already if you ask those questions, you can already see this. Did you have an idea of what they liked? They never had someone sit them down and ask really like the important questions. Okay, how do you like to work? You know, and obviously it can change over time, but usually, you know, Like if you're really bad in the lab, you're probably not going to get good at it. It's just probably you're clumsy and you don't care about it, and you're going to be very dangerous. So let's not let you do like applied chemistry, So yeah, it's really, that's what I would recommend. Just have that time with people, and that's why I think it's very important when we can mentor people and sit them down and say, do you have an opportunity to do an internship in this? And if not, let's go through what you like and don't like, what you see yourself being. Do you see yourself being in an office? Do you see yourself being in a lab? Do you see yourself talking with people and being very hands-on or not? So yeah, I don't know the others if you have also the same way, and I hope that answered your question.
No, that's what really actually that's what's really something that they should is very useful at the situation where Ruchita's generation is there, because they could understand more about the selection of universities, about the selection of what actually particular career they want to pursue. And also, I would also like to add that do not make yourself so much stiff about something. You may think that you love something, but the dimension may appear very different when you go and when you interact with the person who is working into that same career path. So it's always, at the age where you are, just exploring the career options or just exploring the ideas, you are just, bombarded with so much of ideas, then I would suggest that, go with the exposures. So internships are really good at that level, and also talking to the people who are working actually on the professions or on the ground, and actually understanding what kind of routine life or what kind of routine projects they are involved into, and how they solve the problems into applying their own knowledge. That would also help in that situation. So definitely, actually, Eleanor make a very valid point. That is really good. If I could get that advice into my time, I would have applied the same.
Thank you so much, Ram. Like,
Oh,
what?
absolutely.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Oh no, I was like, you all are absolutely right. And as the one person on this call that didn't go to a Cambridge or an IIT, I completely agree that you don't have to go to those schools to be successful. So thank you all for making that point.
Like, all of you made such valid and such amazing points, and it's like really insightful. And I want to know that today, where you are, if you look back 10 years, you had dreamed of something, right? So today, are you happy where you are? Do you have more dreams? Other things you still want to achieve? Do you have regrets? Is there a message you would like to leave for the future generation?
I don't know who wants to get started.
I was going to go ahead and say that no matter what happens, always follow the passion for pursuing a career in music, because right now it seems like that's what I would have loved to come back to. But in reality, like I don't know. I think I am happy. I think looking back 10 years ago, this is where I wanted to be, so I am here. But that's not to say that I won't find inspiration in something else in the days to come and try and pursue that. So I think one of the things that I've learned is I'm not really like stopping myself from looking at new and inspiring avenues to look at. And that's what I would end up saying to the future generation. Keep your enthusiasm and curiosity alive.
Yeah, looking 10 years back, it was funny because I wanted to do a PhD 10 years back. And then I failed my first year and I felt like a failure and I had no idea how life would be. And now looking, I'm like, wow, it was so tough and it was so unexpected. Like literally, like life was so random, so hard and beautiful at the same time. And I'm grateful for every step of it. But what I'm most grateful for is to never have given up. Even at times where, yeah, okay, maybe I've given up for 5 minutes, but the point was with discipline and the hard work, I was able to move forward and to end up in places I would never have thought, like with subjects of research I would never have intended to, in projects and amazing people. And if I had, completely set onto one determined path, and then failed and then thought, well, that's it, I would never be there. So I'm really, really happy. Just keep doing what you love, keep being curious, and don't necessarily aim high in the sense of put crazy goals. Yeah, sure, it's cool to enjoy the crazy goal, but mainly aim for the goals you want, regardless of how crazy they are, because you always have people who will say, well, no, that's too difficult. Yeah, that's part of the fun, actually. If it's easy, then it wasn't worth it, right? No, but like basically just don't give up and do what makes you happy, what makes you thirsty, and what brings you just joy, excitement, and passion, and black eyes from too much work in your daily day. And don't be afraid of failure. That's mainly, if you don't fail, it means you haven't tried hard enough. You haven't aimed high enough.
If I have to convey something to the future generation, and looking back 10 years back, I never imagined to getting into PhD first thing. I never imagined to actually pursuing career into academics. But at the same point of time, I would say that falling everything, I think now when I look back, I think everything fall the at the place where it should be. And I think where I am, I understood later on in life that rather it's always better to be to do work at what you have, what you are given the opportunity. It's always be hungry for the opportunities, always make goals that contribute to your bigger dream, because that make you more concise, more structured into the way you approach your professional career. And also at the same point of time, I always say this, that even if working into technology, I always aim that at the end of my journey of my life, I will always try to contribute something that I could contribute to the society, working into the technology, that however it may be, into which dimensions I may could. But definitely, if you have something in your mind, approach it, be consistent, be hardworking. There will be difficulties, there will be failures, and you will fail and you will just feel like that, okay, I will not be able to do it. But don't give up, as Eleanor said. Just be with it and work where that extra efforts, that extra is always, I think that's the thing that makes the difference. You may lose some of the social acceptance, but always believe in yourself, that you whatever you are working, you are good at it. And even if you are not good at it, then come back, learn that what is something that is lacking, and then again work at it. Don't make other judgments defined whatever you are working at, because there will always be instances where you will feel that you are not good enough. You have to work more into yourself, and trust me, that will make you a better personality of yourself, a better version of yourself. And I would say that I never imagined myself that even 10 years from now, I'm sure that after 10 years, if someone will ask me that what I was supposed to do, then I will say the same thing, that I never imagined that I will be here. Because I think that there is a sense of linearity of time that we perceive that is not there. So we should always play with the randomness that life throws at us, and we should try to make best out of it, whatever situation life throws at us, and never give up. Yeah, so that's something that I would like to say to my future generation, or to the generation who are coming up into the battle of step. So you just have to work a little bit every day. I think consistent is something that you should always be that consistent in your path. So I think that's helped us a lot.
Thank you so much. Rashida, may I please have permission to not just address younger generations, but to address all generations?
Certainly, sir.
I think what I'm about to say is an insight into what I tell myself, that I am just sharing with you. So if it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, just know that, I'm letting you in on a bit of personal dialogue. I tell myself every day that I am not who I am meant to be. I tell myself every day that I don't know what I will learn. And I tell myself every day that I can be greater than I currently am, and that I can always push myself, as I stated earlier, to be a more compassionate person, to be a more generous person, to challenge my preconceived notions, not just about the world, but also about myself, to allow myself to be vulnerable to myself, but in the presence of others, to move through life day by day with these two H's in mind, one H being hope and the other H being humility. I believe that is important, at least for me, to know that I can constantly grow, constantly seek being uncomfortable, because I know that feeling of uncomfort is growth. And I know that if I ever get to a point in my life where things are easy and I don't feel uncomfortable from time to time, then I may be going in the right I may not be going in the right direction, and I may no longer be growing. And so with that being said, I have never in my life served on a panel with the likes of the most intelligent people that I have ever met, talking about global issues, specifically women in STEM, which is so very important. And so to the moderator, to Women in STEM India, thank you so very much for giving me that opportunity. And thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity at the end to share with all generations some tips or some things that I constantly tell myself so that I am to become a better person tomorrow than I am today. So thank you for providing me with this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, so much. And I would also like to take this opportunity to share a little with the future generation. As a child, I hope that 10 years from now, me and my friends can see this. And wherever we are, I hope it really helps. So I'm a person who is always going up and down. Like, I have my best of best days and have the worst of worst days as well. I would like to say that recently I've been thinking a lot about this topic and how things are changing. And that's basically why I named my book Hidden Demons, A Glimpse into the Abyss, because I think life has a lot of hidden demons. And initially, I would like to share my journey. So when I initially wanted to write the novel, I wanted to finish it within 2 weeks because I thought that would be an awesome achievement. And as everybody here has said, enjoy what you're doing. I didn't enjoy it. I just wanted to finish it and have something amazing in my hand. But then it became a platform for me to get past my teenage turbulence, COVID, everything. And I really enjoyed it. And today it's out there, and I hope everybody can read it and enjoy it. So, what I'm trying to say is that though it takes a long time, maybe sometimes it takes a short time, but if you really work hard for it, I think things just turn up well. And just like Women for STEM India, also, it was a small initiative and now it's global, and we have all of you here. And it's a wonderful thing that it's a wonderful